Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Around the Big Ten podcast. I'm Mark Givler, joined by Chip Minnick, as always. This is our second to last one we're recording, our Big Ten pre-spring check-ins on all 18 Big Ten teams, 3 questions, topics, whatever it may be, things to watch here this spring as practices are kicking off around the country. We are on UCLA, which had quite a transitional year last year from Chip Kelly to Deshaun Foster, and had a bit of an interesting offseason as well with the transfer portal, some guys in, some guys out. So we're gonna start though with a coach that we need to see something from this spring, and that is new offensive coordinator Tino Sunseri. Chip, his first task with the Bruins offense this spring is what?
Make it better, because they were sometimes just downright terrible. There's a reason why Eric Bieniemy is no longer on the UCLA staff. You want to talk about a guy who his coaching status, if you will, has just kind of plummeted. He was one of the hottest names in the NFL coaching circles a few years ago. He's on to the best of my knowledge, he's on the Chicago Bears coaching staff as a running backs coach. But after just 1 year, Deshaun Foster said this can't continue. So he went out and hired Tino Sunseri, who was on the staff at Indiana. And in my estimation, that's a good move for Deshaun Foster and the UCLA offense, because not only you're talking about Tino Sunseri, he comes from a coaching family. His father's been a longtime coach. His brother, he's grown up in the business. But Tino Sunseri was at James Madison with Curt Cignetti. He was at Indiana with Curt Cignetti. He knows exactly kind of what works offensively at different places. So I have a feeling that he'll be able to take whatever pieces are at UCLA and make it a lot more cohesive than what UCLA fans saw and experienced in 2024.
Yeah, no question. That on paper looks like it will be an upgrade. We'll see. It's going to have to be. For me, first task, get on the same page with your new quarterback. They bring in Joey Aguilar out of the transfer portal from Appalachian State. They thought Justin Martin would be the guy. He transferred to Maryland. We talked about him in our Maryland look. So this is a guy, Joey Aguilar. Look, 3,000 yards each of the past 2 seasons at Appalachian State, almost 7,000 yards total those 2 years, 56 touchdowns through the air. His numbers dipped last year, like everything dipped. Completion percentage, yards, touchdowns dipped, and the interceptions were up. So did not have nearly as good of a season at App State last year as he did the year before, and there could be a million reasons for that, but they're going to have to get on the same page right away and figure out very quickly, okay, how's this fitting? What does he do best? How can I, as an offensive coordinator, put him in positions that play to his strengths, put him in the best positions possible? That's going to be critical this spring to start to get that figured out, because you don't have that figured out going into fall camp. It's going to be a brutal fall camp. So you get this figured out now, find out what he's good at, find out where kind of the intersection is between what he's good at and what you like to do as a play caller, as a coordinator within your scheme. And let's get this figured out. Deshaun Foster, being an offensive minded player or coach, as from being a running back as a player, may help here, getting another set of eyes on this. There's times it doesn't always help. Sometimes it's too many cooks in the kitchen. I think this time in this situation it will, because you need to very quickly come up with ways to get this offense up and going and playing everyone's strengths. So that's going to be a big thing for me to watch this spring. Now, moving over to the defensive side of the ball, the Bruins do lose a couple guys in the NFL, most notably Carson Schwessinger, linebacker, leader of the defense, tremendous player. Do they have the horses on defense to kind of replace some of these guys like Schwessinger, who they're losing to the NFL?
That has to be determined. I think you referenced, Mark, about the fact that UCLA, they were fairly active in the transfer portal. They lost guys in the transfer portal, but a name that kind of jumps out at me that maybe I don't want to put too much pressure on this young man, Isaiah Chisholm, from Oregon State, coming in at linebacker. Maybe he can come in, and I realize that that's asking an awful lot for a transfer portal to come in and become the heart and soul of the new team that you're becoming a member of. But perhaps he can be a guy that the UCLA defense can be built around, because let's face it, it was a tough year for UCLA that I realize we're going to talk about Deshaun Foster in greater detail momentarily, but they made the best of what was, I think, a very challenging situation. Like I said earlier, they struggled offensively. They lost their defensive coordinator, prior to the season as well. When he moved crosstown to USC, so a lot of things had to kind of come into place for UCLA to be as let's just say as competitive as they were. But I think that Chisholm might be the guy that maybe when he comes in, he can become the new focal point of the UCLA defense in 2025.
Yeah, and look, they lose Jalen Davies to the portal to Oklahoma State, a corner. They lose a kid to Michigan, Trent Middleton, who's a special teams guy. It just feels like they got poached a little bit here. They lose a lineman to Kansas, so they've got to figure this out here defensively. And like you said, Isaiah Chisholm to me looks like a guy who's going to have to be ready to go. They brought in some defensive backs as well. Those guys are going to have to be ready to go. You've already lost, you lost Jalen Davies to the portal, so you bring in a kid from Miami in Robert Stafford. So you're hoping he can come in and help you. You're hoping maybe like a Scooter Jackson can come in and help you. So to me, I'm concerned about their defense. I really am. They've definitely, Champ Sanders is coming in from Oklahoma and Cole Martin from Arizona State. So they've brought in some bodies. I don't know that many of these guys are very proven. And so this is, it's funny. You ever watch like those cartoons and there's like something has sprung a leak and you stop it here and then it starts popping up over there and then you stop it there and it starts popping up somewhere. Like, this is kind of what it feels like to me with they bandaged up the offense. I think they did some good things this offseason with the offense. Now is the defense going to spring a leak, that's my concern with this team. So I'm with you in terms of I'm very wait and see on this because they did lose a couple NFL guys. Did they bring in some NFL guys? I don't know about that. I think that's a very big concern for me going into the year is UCLA's defense in terms of their ability to compete this year. So with that said, has this truly become Deshaun Foster's program? And that's going to be, again, to watch this spring. Does it feel like Deshaun Foster has full command of this program now, year two?
I believe that he does. And this is, I am obviously biased as an Ohio State fan. Loved the addition of Chip Kelly last year. The dividends were, you're reaping the rewards of Chip Kelly as the offensive coordinator, a national championship. Now he's off to the NFL. Getting back to UCLA though, for whatever reason, and we're not privy to what happened, but there was. To say that there was animosity from Chip Kelly towards the athletic administration and vice versa is I think a tremendous understatement. So I think the way that everything happened where Chip Kelly left during the spring and they had to kind of scramble and get Deshaun Foster into this role. And like I said, he had Eric Bieniemy. That didn't work out. They had to figure out what they were doing. I mean, Billy Fessler is now on Ohio State's staff, but he was let go. All these different things, I believe, and we shall see that it's more Deshaun Foster's program this year, where the recruiting, I think the uptick in recruiting, the interest in California kids for UCLA that was not there under Chip Kelly. I think there's a greater commitment to NIL, and we talked about the transfer portal additions. So I think Deshaun Foster is in a much better position of strength and understanding as to what's involved as the head coach at UCLA. The guy bleeds blue and gold for UCLA. This is his dream job. This is where he wants to finish his career. I just think that he's in a much better position at this time as we're recording this in comparison to a year ago.
Yeah, I think I have an enormous amount of respect for Chip Kelly as an offensive mind, as a play caller. It was very, very clear he had no desire to deal with fundraising and NIL and recruit. Like, he just wants to draw up plays and call plays. Like, that's what he wants to do. He doesn't want to worry about all the ridiculous off the field stuff that college coaches have to do now. And it showed. It showed in how things kind of limped to the finish there, with recruiting kind of stalling out, and just the whole thing. So Foster comes in, immediate energizer. Definitely, I think, more willing to do those types of things that need to be done with the NIL fundraising, with recruiting. The Bieniemy to Sunseri move obviously has his fingerprints all over it. So I do think this is now his program. I do believe that. And, to his credit, we kind of talked about Wisconsin here earlier. That episode will be up. It's already up. If you're watching this now, the Wisconsin episode's up, you can check that out as well. And we talked about Luke Fickell, really needing a sense of urgency, hot seat getting warm. I think Deshaun Foster has time. I think he's at a place that's patient. I think he's at a place that will be patient with him. I think he's the right guy for the job. It's not the easiest job in the world, playing in the same city as USC, and you're recruiting against them in Oregon and out west, and so it's not the easiest. It's a very competitive recruiting landscape out there in Los Angeles and Southern California. So I have a pretty high level of confidence in Deshaun Foster. And I like some of the things he did this offseason. And now it's going to be okay, administration, just be patient enough to let this play out a little bit. Let him get his recruits in there, because that's the thing. You can talk about the transfer portal and this, that, and the other, but he's got to have a year or two of his recruiting classes coming in, getting into his program. But what that looks like in 25, I don't know. Like I said, I'm concerned about the defense. I don't know that we're going to see a drastic improvement in their record this year. But it's one of those teams where I could totally see us a year from now looking at a team that basically had the same record they had the year before, but saying, boy, does this feel like they're in a better spot now? I don't think this is a year that necessarily has to be measured in how many more wins did you get this year than last year. I don't think that's the ultimate goal here for them. It will be in a couple of years, this will go away. It's okay, you got to win now. But I think there's so much more to this season for them than just, win more games than last year.
Yeah. When I think back to last year, and I mentioned this on previous episodes when we talked about, for example, Washington or, USC and Oregon, the fact that it was a big move for those three programs moving from the Pac-12 to the Big Ten. And then, all right, let's throw in, and Washington is probably the closest parallel to UCLA. All right, let's throw a coaching change on top of it. And the fact that, unlike Washington, who played for the national championship, UCLA, as I said a few moments ago, that UCLA, and I agree with you that, Chip Kelly wanted nothing to do with, NIL fundraising and all of that. And, all power to him. He's now gets to focus exclusively in the NFL on calling plays, and that's fine. But for UCLA to be thrown that curveball that, all right, I'm going to leave to become the offensive coordinator at Ohio State and thrust Deshaun Foster, who had never been a head coach, into that position. I think the fact that UCLA finishing 5-7, only one game out of bowl game eligibility, was I'm not saying a tremendous accomplishment, but it was a really good accomplishment in light of all the external factors that you have to keep in mind.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, yeah, he was thrown into a tough situation. It feels like he was kind of being groomed to take over for Chip Kelly eventually, but I don't think anyone thought Chip Kelly. I don't think anyone at UCLA thought that was going to be last year. I thought they had a little more time there with Foster to kind of grow on the job, but he got thrown right into the fire. So hats off to him for what he's done so far. And we'll see if that leads to an improvement in the win-loss columns this fall, but some big questions this spring to answer. And we'll check back with them after spring to kind of see where things are at. This is actually the one that's going to run last. So this is our last one. We hope you've enjoyed all of these again at youtube.com/@SaturdayGlory. And you can find all 18 pre-spring Big Ten capsules. You can go to our playlist around the Big Ten. They'll all be on there as well if you want kind of an easier search. Or you can, of course, download this podcast on your audio platforms of choice. But we thank everyone for their support. We thank everyone for watching and listening. And we will talk to you again soon as we get out of the capsule business and get back into the totality of the Big Ten with our podcast. So looking forward to that. And again, we'll talk to everyone soon. Enjoy spring football.